Yes, we argue for near over far, small over big, and insist that simple is better than complex. And in the footnotes at 5-point type in Helvetica, which when you have very small type down to 5 or 4-point, make sure it's sans serif that has easy to read letters. Helvetica is Swiss and it's neutral and easy to read. Down there in the small gray matter at the bottom of the page, we fight there too with armor-piercing rounds and lances. Okay, we use both and helicopters. And we say there that personal is better than corporate and physical than abstract. We're brought to you by Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. Not a very popular website, but you know, it doesn't have to be. And here's why. The individual matters. The individual listener, like you, my listener, matters. And I tell people whom I'm going to have advertised on my station, I say, look, on my show, I've got one listener. And they look at me sort of bewildered and as if to say, well, why would I want to advertise with you on your radio station and on your show if you have just one listener? And I say, well, my listener is the most important man in town. He's the man who listens. He's the man who matters. And if he doesn't matter yet, well, then he wants to be someone who matters. And he's trying to find out if I, David Tulis, his host here for the next few minutes, might possibly give him a perspective that would make him increasingly valuable to other people. And that, after all, is what capitalism is all about. That's what free enterprise is about. You become valuable to other people, and you operate in an area of grace. Now, I give a lot of time to oppression and how we fight oppression. And the reason I do that is because I want to make a contrast in your mind. The oppressor, that would be police officers or former police officers such as David Campbell, harassing Hanson Melvin, for example, they operate by force and threat and injury. They are about injuring you so that you will submit, that you will bow down to them since you are the subject, right? You are their subject and you are their property. Bow down to them and comply. Answer all the questions that you're asking. Don't spout off, and don't either. You either have to look him in the eye or you're not supposed to look him in the eye. One or the other. It depends on whether he had enough donuts that morning. And the goal here at Nooga Radio and on the David Tulis Show is to give you that sense of dignity and pride, like Hanson Melvin has exercised, and you can see his courage in the filing by attorney Clay Whitaker, the best attorney in town. Clay Whitaker filed on behalf of Hanson Melvin, just getting in under the deadline for the expiration of the claim under the statute of limitations. We're all about liberty. Now, the enemy doesn't like liberty, okay? You can see it all around the world. You can see the dying out of the humanistic theory. Look, just for example, in Canada, there's a new human rights law that's gone into effect, and it's put the pinch on consciences of people such as a professor in Toronto named Jordan Peterson. He put out that YouTube video that in some circles is notorious, right? And his offense is that he's offending the right of people who are non-gendered or transgendered or neutrogendered somehow to be respected according to their own terms. And what the humanists have done is turned the idea of human rights on its head. So human rights are a zero-sum game. In other words, if someone has a right and exercises it, that by definition deprives someone else of another right, of some different rights. Giving rights to some means taking rights from other people. There's been a bill C-16 pushed by the Liberal government. It adds gender identity or expression to grounds of discrimination in the Human Rights Act in Canada, and it applies to federal subjects, which would include airports and banks, regulated industries, the military, and the equal codes, like codes in the provinces, would apply to personal and commercial activities in those places. That would be schools, workplaces, shops, hospitals, and the Canadian provinces are like their master, very egalitarian in their perspective. And so there, you have to use words like ze and zer. They, you can't use him or her or he and she. These are sins, and you dare not say refer to someone as a she when she's already made it known that she is some new queer usage, some new queer pronoun. If you use a he, and the person you're talking about are two in public forum has already made a decision about his identity. Well, you're going to go before a body that's going to demand an apology. You might have to have some some Soviet style re-education. You may face fines, if you're not complying. You may face contempt of court, incarceration from that, and other abuses. Human rights, which I would say are wrong at the start. Right there, human rights are corrupt at the beginning. What we need to have are liberties. Right, human rights are not liberties. We need to have an understanding of liberties given by God. Right, liberties are given by God to the individual, and they're defended by constitutions. They're defended by law, and human rights are grants in many ways. And the purpose of human rights, though, given just grant for a second that they do have some merit, that purpose was to prevent arbitrary arrest from people, detention, torture, censorship by placing what? Constraints on government. The state's capacity to accommodate these negative rights was unlimited, since they required only that people be left alone. But that has changed, and we are here at the end of this grand period where you have the victim category, the victim class. And I bring these points out because what I want for you, my listener, is to assert your liberty. Okay, if you assert your liberty, you're not offending anybody, right? And that would be the liberty of free expression, the liberty to speak your mind, as against power, as against police authorities. And the case filed a few days ago by Clay Whitaker of McCune Law Firm on behalf of Hanson Melvin makes this point. And it says that the city government has had a policy of allowing officers to work with other officers to maintain the status of offense, to be offended. And it's an important part of the claims in this lawsuit, which says it's not just Officer David Campbell who acted outside of color of law independently and individually in his private capacity and private person against Hanson Melvin, the innocent Christian man walking while black, right? It's not just that, but the plaintiff was punished, the suit says, for exercising his free speech and to question officers about during his false arrest. All of these officers acted to make the plaintiff know he was targeted by them and to make him understand that they had authority over him and to chill the exercise of his liberty guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Tennessee. It was a conspiracy, as we have reported. Now, we alone here in Chattanooga have kept on the Hanson Melvin case. Hanson Melvin came to my attention as a gregarious man working, when I met him first, at a bagel shop here in Hickson. And he was very outgoing, very chatty, and I like people being chatty, and it was one of the few people I've met who really asked questions about me. It's funny, Americans are not really gregarious, and most people don't talk about you. I mean, they'll talk about them, and that's fine with me, and very few people will talk about who you are. What do you do? Where are you from? That's a very unusual thing, and Hanson Melvin has that, you might say, a gift of gab. He's the future mayor of Chattanooga, by the way, and he has this gift of gab, and so he and I became acquainted, and then this evil happened to him on May 29 of 2016, and a few days later, he contacted me and said, "David, can I tell you about my story?" And he did, and so from that time on, we have covered the Hanson Melvin case in detail, and I've probably written 25, 30 stories about him at various stages of the proceedings against him, and now the proceedings are against the malefactors in this case. That would be a rogue officer, whom the claim is not a rogue officer, but actually following policy, actually acting in concert with others in a conspiracy to violate the constitutionally protected, God-given rights of this free and innocent man. He's a black man, a descendant of slaves, and yet the police department, in its policy, enhanced and enforced and kept up and maintained by Fred Fletcher, the chief, and protected by the status quo views of Mayor Andy Burke. These parties offended this man by policy, not just by private action under color of law by one officer. It was a policy. It came about by training, by the lack of understanding by the officers of what probable cause is. What is probable cause? How does someone get probable cause as an officer to waylay, arrest, and seize a citizen? There were rules and regulations of the city of Chattanooga that allowed all these things to happen. A custom and habit, and the lawsuit says the conduct was so intentional or reckless and was so outrageous that it is not tolerated by a civilized authority and a civilized society. An abuse of authority that went on, and shows Hanson Melvin to great effect. He was a very godly man, a Christian character, and even testified as he was being taken lawlessly to jail, even as he was being kidnapped by a city police officer, taken to jail downtown. He testified of God's grace to him, and he said that God would use this abuse of him for the benefit of Officer David Campbell, who is now no longer an officer of the police department. And this story was covered by us here in God's good providence by this radio station, and also by Nooganomics.com. And now I want to just have a word about what this platform is all about, and how we work here, and what you, my listener, believe. Now, you, my listener, let's say you're a conservative. You're probably pro-Trump. I don't hold that against you, but you're probably pro-Trump, and you are a traditional conservative. You like the Constitution. You like limited government. You believe in the American ideal. You believe in free enterprise. You believe in the family. You reject queer theory, the lug butt theory that is making war against civilization and presaging its collapse. You're against that. Buggery, sodomy, and homosexuality you think are sins, even though you're not a Christian. You'd say those are sins. So this is who you are, my listener, and that's why you tune into my program every day, and I'm grateful that you do. I'm very grateful that you give me just a minute of your time here. Now, going further, in light of this particular interest that you have, why have you not called me? Now, I want you to call me, you, my listener, and I want you to say, look, David, I want you to help me, okay? I want you, David Tulis, to help me, the listener of this show. And here's what I want to do for you. Here's how I might serve you. And I propose a mutually beneficial arrangement. And that is that you join me in supporting this radio station by letting me help you, okay? And you do that by saying, David, I've run a business, and I'd love to have my business being presented to the other listener, right? Because you're the listener, but you know there's another one. There's probably at least one more listener out there, and you want that other listener to come into your shop, okay? So you say, David, I want you to help me reach that other listener, and I want you to have that other listener buy a car from me, or buy a sandwich from me, or maybe have his leaky commode checked by me, and stop the drip. That's what you can do. And when you do that, what you're doing is two things, right? You're supporting yourself by getting new business, by being a patron and advertiser on Noogaradio, the only platform like it in the country. I dare say there are probably not many radio stations that have as high class a program as we do. We have it all here. We have Sean Hannity at 3. We have Colin Cowherd most days at noon, and some great local shows. We have Alex Jones, InfoWars in the evening, and we have George Noory at Coast to Coast AM with many speculative interviews and topics in the late night watches. And America's First News in the morning. That's us. We're here with news for you, analysis. It covers the spectrum, right? I'm a classical liberal, right? But we have people on the right. We have Sean Hannity. Now, what kind of platform has such a great mix? You might say conservative and liberal, and but I'm not a classic liberal. I'll have you know. I mean, I'm not a progressive liberal. I'll have you know. I'm a classical liberal. That means a Frederick Bastiat liberal, right? A Bible liberal, a Alexis de Tocqueville kind of liberal, free markets and free minds, and subject to God, as revealed where? In the Holy Scriptures, right? There you'll find the law for the individual, mostly in the New Testament, and there in Holy Writ, you'll find the law for nations, and that's the Old Testament. The Old Testament is where you find your public policy, that rule for government, that rule for the civil magistrate, and the operation of equity in courts, in warfare, in national identity, if there is to be one, in whether or not there are borders, in the disposition of the murderer, in the disposition of the adulteress, the rules of evidence. Those are all built there. The necessity to rest on the Sabbath day, which with the resurrection of Christ shifted from the Saturday, the last day of the week, to the first day of the week, which on the calendar is Sunday. Those are all civil rules and civil laws, and those are the system of government that I think are best suited for our country, our city, and of course the individual. Now, we make these arguments, and we make them well, I would say. Now, if you want to hear more of this kind of media, you have to support it. And supporting the free and independent media in Chattanooga, which is not owned by strangers, right, and which does not export its profit. If you want more of that, you've got to support me, David Tulis. And by that, I mean you need to tell a friend about my show, and you need to send links out to our Facebook page for others. You need to like what we do on Facebook. That's important. You need to support our advertisers. Now, that's important also to think about our great advertisers. Have a legal problem? Well, for example, you go to Jim McCoon Law Firm and contact Clay Whitaker. If you need plumbing services, well, you go to Ray's Plumbing. Ray Zaplinski, who's a real plumber and a great guy. Whatever your need might be, if you need Mexican dinner, you go to Delia's Inside Daisy and enjoy authentic Mexican fare there. Support our advertisers, and you support me, because if you go and give our advertisers more business, Thomas DeMoss, for example, in real estate, then they will say, I'm getting business from David Tulis. I'm going to renew my agreement. We're a great media company. By the way, we don't lock down our advertisers. We get paid in advance, which is a bit unusual in this field, but we don't tie anybody's hands. We don't require long-term contracts, and my advertisers are all free to leave whenever they want. They can pay in advance and get extra time, and some do. But we don't tie anybody's hands. We want you in business to be flexible, to be free, to be mobile, and so we would dare not hamper you if your needs change and you need to move out of your radio commitment. We say, okay, well, just pay us in advance 1 month at a time, and we'll bring results to you. And that's a great promise, and that's only a local platform can do that. If you're dealing with a national company like Cumulus, which has billions and billions of dollars in debt, you have hard-pressed salesmen, you have everybody interested in the dollar. But here, we're not interested in the dollar. We are rather interested in you and how to help you. And so that being a mutual thing, think about helping me. Think about saying, I'm going to support Noogaradio, and I'm going to support Noogaradio by looking out for myself. And I'm going to have Noogaradio run advertisements for the next 3 months for my wonderful, wonderful business, which is underappreciated. And David Tulis is smart enough, I know, that he can make my business really stand out in the mind of his other listener, right? That other listener, other than me, the business owner, I want that other person to come and buy from me and have my services, because I provide a great, great service. That is our theory here at Noogaradio: local economy and the free market. Love your neighbor. Buy local. It's localism. It is, as we say, Noogacentrism. And this is David Tulis, your host here, Noogacentric to the core, even though I am a foreigner, born of two foreigners here, David Tulis, the mother, who remains alive at age 93, born in Zurich, Switzerland, and the father from an even stranger and more remote place, that being Sudbury, Massachusetts. So you see, I've become a Chattanoogan, being born here, having been born here, and though I'm a kind of foreign cosmopolite, I am at heart Noogacentric to the core, and I want you to become Noogacentric too. Let's have a great, great, wonderful Chattanooga. Let's prosper together, and let media operators grow privately, apart from the establishment media. And I offer Sharon Rondeau at thepostemail.com in Connecticut, where she lives. She covers Tennessee prisons unlike any Tennessee media outfit ever. Hundreds of stories at thepostemail.com about the abuses of CoreCivic, of many prisoners in its slavery operations. This is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me a minute of your time. Think about supporting local media. Think about joining me in a wonderful enterprise, and that is letting Noogaradio serve you and help Noogaradio become a prosperous and wonderful, and even more wonderful and more prosperous outfit than it is already. I do thank you for giving me just a minute of your time. Tune in to Nooganomics.com. I've got a pile of things I need to get out, and I'm behind the gun. I'm trying to get a homeschool newsletter off my desk this weekend, so I'll be busy doing that. But we're busy, and you stay busy too, and prosper. David Tulis.
Noogaradio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.